Elizabeth and myself would love to thank ChiroSecure for giving us this platform and always having our backs and giving this opportunity to help enlighten the world about kiddos and chiropractic. So, Elizabeth is going to take a mad dash nap while we continue on, and she'll be back to see you at the end. So, have a good nap there, Miss Elizabeth. Today, we are going to drop some amazing information about ADHD. Have we been getting it wrong all these years? What is the science telling us? Well, we're going to dive in and dig into that. So stay tuned, follow me. I'm Dr. Monica Berger, and I am excited to bring you this updated information. Pearls that we should be starting to consider for those kiddos that are struggling with learning, attention, and behavior. So, first of all, back in 1999, they started this ongoing study. It's called the MTA study, Multimodal Treatment for ADHD. So it started in 1999, and it's a progressive ongoing study. And out of that came the findings that for ADHD, the first line of defense should actually be, drum roll, behavioral therapy with the kiddos and with the parents learning how to interact and some behavioral strategies with kiddos. And in 2011, the American Academy of Pediatrics adopted these recommendations. However, have they been followed? Well, let's take a look. As of recently, what the findings are is get this, 4 to 5 year olds haven't even started school yet, ages 4 to 5. Little over 42% of those kiddos are being put on medications, stimulant medications, within 30 days of their first diagnosis of ADHD. Now, mind you, these recommendations were first line of defense should be behavioral therapy for at least first 6 months. Okay. So within 30 days of getting a diagnosis, a little over 42% of kiddos ages 4 to 5, haven't even started school yet, are being put on medications. About a little over 14% are being put on medications within 6 months of their first diagnosis. And by the time they hit age 7, about 68% of kiddos are being put on prescription meds for ADHD. So the whole idea behind this MTA study and behavioral intervention as being the first line of defense has really not taken root, sadly so. But just recently, more thought is going into this, and researchers and neuroscientists and behavioral therapists are all looking at what really needs to happen. What is going on with the quote unquote ADHD individual? Well, a neuroscientist and psychiatrist researcher out of King's College London, which I'm proud to say I'm finishing up my master's there right now, Edmund Sangua Bark, states that we have a clinical definition of ADHD that is increasingly unanchored in neuroscience, and that clinicians can't really objectively measure the individual for ADHD. In other words, there's not really a sound neurobiological reason underlying pinning for most cases of ADHD. Now, there's the cases where, like fetal alcohol syndrome and those type of insults in that prenatal period that will definitely lead to dysregulation of neural pathways and can lead to ADHD-like behavior and symptoms. Okay, so we've got that. But the increasingly accepted plausible cause behind ADHD expressive behaviors, you notice how I'm using the term expressive behaviors, is weaknesses, difficulty between physical and emotional adaptability and the environment. So as I've said for many years, a a person, especially a kiddo's neural expressive behavior, is a window into their neurological integrity. So if they have physical and or emotional immaturity for some reason, when they try to fit into certain environments, their expressive behavior becomes an issue. The MTA study has also shown that within the first 14 months of stimulant therapy, they've seen a help benefit from stimulants. However, by 36 months, that is no longer seen. They don't no longer see that. The other interesting fact is that the study started in 1999, that 40% of the control group that did not receive a diagnosis of ADHD back when the study started, later on received a diagnosis of ADHD. So what happened in between that time? And the current accepted theory is that it is a difficulty within our environment, that individuals across all ages and stages are having a harder time adapting to their environmental situations. So, take for instance the 5-year-old that's starting school. Maybe their birthday's later in the year, and many studies have shown that kiddos that have a later birth date and they start school that fall, they do tend to struggle more, or they never went to preschool, or this is even better for us chiropractors, they in the early years, especially those first 2 years of developmental maturity, didn't receive the proper sensory environment. They didn't meet their motor, gross, fine, language, or social motor milestones. And now they get put in an environment where the demands are greater. The teenager that maybe thrived during the school age, the primary school ages, because there was more activity driven assignments, and now the demands are more sitting still, more time reading. In fact, we're finding increasing demands of taking classes that are prerequisites for college. So the demands go up. They thrive when they were able to be in environments where they could be more doing and more activities. And as that starts to diminish in that junior high school years, they start to struggle. Even the adult that graduates from college, now they get thrown in a high stressful environment in the workforce, more demands, maybe more multitasking, more technology. And again, they don't have that neuroadaptability to thrive in that environment. So that's the new model of thinking in the ADHD world. However, we have to understand that ourselves as practitioners that are working with families and kiddos, and we need to be able to articulate that and help educate practice members in some things that could be beneficial for those that are struggling. So the one of the biggest talked about environmental stressors, so to speak, is sleep. A lot of the researchers, the scientists that are looking in this arena on behavioral strategies and neuroadaptability in their environment take sleep as a primary example. When you're tired, everything's out the window, right? I mean, it's harder to concentrate, to sit still. One of the theories is the reasons that stimulants might work sometimes or temporarily with those that struggle with learning attention behavior and ADHD is because, just like a truck driver or an individual that works midnight shifts and so forth, a stimulant can help them get through that period of time, that short period of time, more successfully. But it doesn't help over a long period, long period of time. And that's kind of the same line of thinking. So the shift is happening into looking at more conservative strategies for those struggling with attention issues rather than medication. And for us as chiropractors, this is the gist of what we do. Not only have we shown in the adult, we don't have the studies to back up the kiddos yet, but in the adult brain, that the specific chiropractic adjustment helps modulate incoming sensory input into the brain in order for us to respond more appropriately in the motor capacity. And that's essentially what we're looking at in the new paradigm of the ADHD individual. So, first of all, if we have vertebral subluxations early on in life, and those little fiddle farts, and I've talked about this a million times, those little fiddle farts can't get into the right developmental motor patterns, tummy time, rolling, supine, bringing their nose to their toes, getting up on all fours, rocking, creeping, crawling. These developmental motor patterns are priming the brain for later on executive functioning and learning and attention behavior skills in the classroom or in the workforce. If they're missed for any reason, including vertebral subluxations, that's going to cause a discrepancy between the information coming into the brain and being able to properly neurally adapt in their environment when things are on more of a command or demand basis. So, bottom line for us chiropractors, getting in and laying the foundation for developmental health. And if that is skipped, the consequences that they might struggle with down the road. But it's never too late to make that up. We can still get in there. We can clear vertebral subluxations if they're 5, 6, 18 years old, and we can start to repattern those neural circuits in the brain so that now that they can better neurally adapt to their environment. If you want more information and really learn the nuts and bolts on this, scroll down, dive in, dig in to my Foundations of Neurodevelopment. You can't miss out because this is incredibly essential information that you need to turn the tide for generations to come. Again, Elizabeth and myself, Elizabeth got up from a nap. Want to thank ChiroSecure for giving us this opportunity. Hopefully you will learn and dive into these tidbits and pearls and enlighten the world about why kiddos need chiropractic. We'll see you next month.
Today's pediatric show, Look to the Children, was brought to you by ChiroSecure.